going on, everyone? So the standings for the Western Conference are insanely tight. Literally, you have 3 games separating the 5th seed and the 11th seed. This is going to be a season that's going to come down very likely to the last game or two of the season to kind of dictate who lands where, who gets what position, who gets what seeding, this, that, and the other. Who's going to be that team that ends up falling out. And as we get closer, most of these teams only have 6 or 7 games left. And of course, the Lakers are trying to get into that at least 7th to 8th spot to where you only have to win 1 play-in game, or ideally the 6th spot. But you also have all these other teams that are trying to do the exact same thing. They're trying to keep seeding. They're trying to fight for seeding. You have some teams, as you can see here, the Pelicans and the Timberwolves, on winning streaks. Some of these teams still play each other, and it is going to be an absolute dogfight getting into this last stretch of games. But I kind of wanted to go over all of the teams and their schedules and then compare it to the Lakers, because we've talked, I usually do like the daily updates and stuff like that in regards to the Lakers and where they stand, but I haven't really touched on the other teams in comparison to the Lakers. So I wanted to dive into that and give you a full in-depth deep dive. So let's dive right into it. So again, Dallas Mavericks, I think this is a good place to start because Dallas, they're the odd man out right now. And them being the odd man out means that they have the hardest road ahead to climb because they got to win games. And again, most of these teams might be separated by just 1 game, literally. Dallas losing 1 game could be the difference between them being in the 11th seed and them completely, being out of the playoffs to them all of a sudden being in the 7th, 8th seed. And Dallas still has Luka and Kyrie, which could be a tough matchup, especially if they only have to win 1 game, right? You could see a heroic performance by Luka, just a closeout performance by Kyrie. It could still be challenging. Although Dallas, I don't really think is going to win anything. They still could surprise a team in the play-in if that were to happen. And when you look at their upcoming schedule, for this month, they play the Sixers in Philadelphia. Now, question is, does Joel Embiid play? Does James Harden play? They're dealing with some injuries. So is that something that ends up happening? Hopefully they do, because obviously, again, the Lakers need these teams to lose. So Sixers fully healthy should be able to beat the Dallas Mavericks. But then you get into April and you look at their schedule and it's pretty balanced. They definitely have some games that they could lose, like Miami. They're playing at Miami, playing at Atlanta. Those are 2 games that I think that they could lose. Atlanta's capable of beating them, and so is the Miami Heat. And both of those teams are fighting for positioning, right? So that helps. My concern with the Kings is, do the Kings end up just packing it in? Right? They only need to win 1 more game, and they clinch a playoff berth. Do they, the last game or 2 of the season, do they just pack it up and just say, hey, we know we're locked into the 3 seed or whatever? Who cares? That could be a real thing. Chicago is another team that's very likely playing to the last game, to the last moment. So they are going to be fighting, and that'll be a juggernaut. And then you got the Spurs, who they're doing everything they can to lose. So the Mavericks at least have 4 to 5 very, very tough games. And then they have that 1 gimme game, right? Or it should be a gimme game. Although with Dallas, we've seen that no game seems to be a gimme game for them. But again, this is a good positive sign when you look at the Dallas Mavericks, right? They got some tough games coming up against teams that actually need to win and actually are fighting for seeding, because you're already starting to see some of these teams pack it up, right? Like, for example, the Pacers sat everybody, right? You have the Utah Jazz seem to be packing it in. You have several teams that really seem to just, okay, let's just try to get the best pick possible. But moving on, got the surprise team, the Oklahoma City Thunder, which this team might be the one of big concern, right? Because one, they're right on the tails of the Lakers. The beauty is the Lakers have the tiebreaker against OKC. That is huge for the Lakers. But that also means you need to at least keep pace with Oklahoma City, because if you don't, then you're going to be in big trouble. So when you look at OKC, they have a very easy schedule. They play the Hornets, they play the Pistons, they play the Pacers. All three teams that have kind of just packed it in, especially the Pacers. Again, Pacers have set everybody. So they have 3 games this month. In all 3 of those games, the Thunder most likely win. All of them. And then you get to April. And April gets a little tougher. But there's still concern, right? The Phoenix Suns, at that point, April 2nd, they're probably still playing guys. Kevin Durant should be back. All that stuff. So that's a good sign. The Warriors, they play in Golden State. The Warriors have just been a juggernaut at home. That should probably be a win for the Warriors. The Warriors also are very likely going to be continuing to fight for seeding. So that is an important game. Utah's packing it in. And then the Grizzlies, we'll see. Because again, they're if they're locked into the 2 seed or even the 3 seed, do they play their guys? Do they just say, hey, let's go beat this team. Let's try to knock them out. So the Grizzlies could be a tough matchup. So, I mean, the Thunder have, 4 essential gimme games? Maybe 5 with the Grizzlies? I mean, the Thunder might be our toughest competition because you look at their schedule and you go, man, they might go 5-2 over these last 7 games. And it wouldn't be shocking at all, which means the Lakers are going to have to go 5-2 over their 7 games. But then you got the New Orleans Pelicans, who are on a 5-game winning streak. They just had a really easy game, really big gimme game. Portland, they've packed it up entirely, shutting down Dame for the season, it looks like. And this is a team that could be a real threat, right? This is a team that that they believe, if they get Zion back, that they can be a contender, right? Brandon Ingram's playing really good basketball. CJ McCollum as like their third guy is, again, another one of those like really good third options, good third threats. So the Pelicans could definitely be a team that has some interest, right? And they want the Lakers draft pick. They want, the Lakers number. They want to beat the Lakers, everything, right? Luckily, again, this is a team that we have the tiebreaker for. And this is a team that has a very tough stretch coming up. They have one of the toughest stretches coming up. So they have to play the Warriors in Golden State. Then they have to play the Denver Nuggets in Denver. And then they follow that up with the Clippers, who are fighting for seeding, the Kings, who at April 4th are probably still playing for seeding, the Grizzlies, who are doing the same thing, then they have the Knicks, who are doing the same thing, and the Timberwolves that are doing the same thing. I mean, you could make an argument the Pelicans might not win another game the rest of the season. They could go 0-7 very easily. Now, will they? Probably not. I think that they will win a game or 2 at least. But this is the toughest schedule by far out of all the teams that we are competing for seeding with, which is good, right? Because if the Lakers at least need to get into the 7th or 8th seed, you need the teams that you have tiebreakers with to at least have tough schedules. The Pelicans, that eliminates one of them, right? The Thunder, if you can keep pace with them, again, that's my big concern, but you have the tiebreaker. So if they go 5-2, you need to go 5-2, right? So that is something that could be beneficial. But again, the Pelicans have an absolute juggernaut of a schedule left that is not very favorable at all. And so hopefully these teams, again, all these teams are fighting for seeding. All these teams are very good teams that are all arguably better than the Pelicans. In my opinion, I think all of them are better than the Pelicans, but it's neither here nor there. Then you have, of course, the Warriors, the defending NBA champions, who they have kind of seemed to have turned it around a little bit. They've been playing better basketball lately, although they did just take a tough loss to the Timberwolves. But this is a team that is, again, trying to get into that playoff spot, that 5-6 seed, stay there. And then once they get in, they believe that, hey, we can win the whole thing again. And, I mean, it's the Warriors. Every year, you think that they're done. Every year you think that that's it. And then every year they're in the conversation or winning an NBA championship. So you can never sleep on the Warriors as long as they are the Warriors. Klay has kind of been better and gotten into himself. Not so much on the defensive end, but definitely the offensive end. Jordan Poole just had a monster game a couple games ago. This is a team that could be terrifying. And it's also crazy that we might have a first-round matchup of either the Clippers and the Suns or the Warriors and the Suns. Looking forward to either of those matchups. But you look at the Warriors kind of have a cakewalk. The Warriors, they might not, you can make an argument they might not lose another game. So they're playing the Pelicans, they're playing the Spurs. Two games that are again, at home, probably gimme games, especially at least the Spurs game. Again, these are both home games for the Warriors. And then you go into April, and you have at the Nuggets, which is going to be a very tough game for them because Denver at this point will probably still be playing. But after that, they have the Thunder at home, which they should beat the Thunder. And then at Sacramento, which the Warriors have not been a very good road team at all this year. One of the worst in the league. But again, does Sacramento pack it up? Does Sacramento say, hey, we're already locked in, no need to worry about it? We're going to have to play the Warriors either way at some point, very likely. So, let's get our guys rested, let's get our guys ready, and let's go, make this push for the playoffs. That could be a real possibility. And then the Blazers have already packed it in. So outside of that Nuggets game, you can make an argument that the Warriors might not lose another game the rest of the way, which sucks because, again, we have the tiebreaker against the Warriors. So if we could at least get to the same number of wins as them, then we would get the nod. But it's just, unless the Lakers go 7-0, we're probably not catching the Warriors, which is unfortunate. So the Warriors probably get the 5 or 6 seed, is my guess. But Timberwolves, right? This is the team that is going to be very interesting because they are playing very good basketball. They're on a 4-game winning streak. They just beat the Warriors. They play us in 2 games, right? We got Chicago and then we got Minnesota in Minnesota. So that's going to be a very tough game. That might be the most significant game that we have coming up. Now, the Timberwolves, even if we win this game, the Timberwolves would still have the tiebreaker. But if we can be at least a game ahead of them, which this would give us a full game on them, we could be in a position to potentially jump them in the standings. We also might end up playing them in the 7th or 8th seed because the Timberwolves right now, the way it's looking, the way it's standing, they're probably going to finish in the 7th or 8th. But you look at their schedule, they have the Suns, which Kevin Durant's supposed to be back for that game. And if he is, I think the Suns can win that game, right? So they play the Suns with Kevin Durant. That would be huge. Then they play us. That could be 2 straight losses. It should be 2 straight losses because the Lakers should get the job done. And the Phoenix Suns, again, are still fighting for seeding. Kevin Durant's coming back. That should be a game that they win and need to win. So 2 straight losses, right? Then you look at the rest of their schedule, and this is where it gets tough, right? Blazers have packed it up. The Nets, they're hot and cold, right? One game, they look like they might be the best team in the league, and then the next game, they're just terrible, right? And they're getting blown out by 40. So what do the Nets give you, right? Can the Nets beat them? Maybe, possibly, and it's in Brooklyn, so that could be beneficial, right? Plus the Nets, are trying to play for something because they don't really have the draft picks, so that could be a game that they actually try. Spurs have packed it up, and then the Pelicans, that could be a game that decides seeding. So both of those teams are probably going to play 100%, right? So at best case scenario, you're talking the Grizzlies go, or the Timberwolves go 3-3. That could be something. That would be huge. Maybe you get a surprise game, right? Maybe maybe the Pelicans, the Nets both beat them, and then the Lakers and the Suns beat them. There you go. Now they're 2-4. That could be big. That could be huge. Or maybe you just get lucky and the Spurs just shoot the lights out or something like that. But realistically, they're probably looking at 3-3, maybe 4-2. So again, that's going to be tough because they have the tiebreaker against us, and they're that. Although if we land in the 7th or the 8th seed, and they land in the 7th or the 8th seed, it doesn't really matter. I mean, I guess you could say, home court would matter, but you're going to have to play that team regardless, so it might not be the biggest deal in the world. But Clippers are the interesting team because they don't have Paul George, and they've been hot and cold. Although they are coming off of a win against the Chicago Bulls, still a lot of questions with them, right? Are they going to be able to stay out of the play-in and avoid the play-in? Are they going to, be a team that plays the Suns in the first round, and can they beat the Suns? I actually think they can. I actually think they match up. You can make an argument the Clippers match up to the Suns better than any team in the league, right? Because you could put Kawhi Leonard on Kevin Durant, and then you could put Paul George on Devin Booker, and then Russell Westbrook has made Chris Paul his son on numerous occasions. And then not just that, but the Clippers have nothing but sizable wings to just throw at everybody, right? And you got Ivica Zubac, and you got Plumlee, who both can kind of just wear down Ayton over a 7-game series. So the Clippers, that matchup against the Suns could be very interesting. Very interesting. But their schedule, they got the Grizzlies twice in Memphis. And Memphis is fighting for seeding, right? They're trying to be the 2 or 3 seed. So they very likely are going to play both of those games, and they would love to beat the Clippers. And Ja's back and all that stuff, so that's good. That's something beneficial. That could be 2 straight losses for the Clippers. But then you get to the end of the season. Pelicans in New Orleans. The Pelicans absolutely need that win, right? So maybe the Pelicans show up and beat the Clippers, and then we play them. And we need to beat them. I mean, the Clippers could go on a 4-game losing streak, right? If the Grizzlies can do their job both times, which they need to do, the Pelicans, who are going to desperately need wins, if they could do their job, and then if we do our job, I mean, you could be talking, the Clippers could be, 5-1, right? Over their last 6 games, right? If the Grizzlies beat them twice, right? And the Pelicans and Lakers beat them, there's 4 losses. They probably beat the Blazers because the Blazers packed it in. And then do the Suns play their guys, right? If they do, then that could be an interesting matchup. And if the Suns beat them, then that means the Clippers only go 1-5. That could be huge for the Lakers, right? But let's say they do. Let's say they go 3-2, something like that, right? Can the Lakers win enough games to catch them? They wouldn't have the tiebreaker on them, so they'd have to, again, win a full game. Makes things difficult, makes things complicated. But they definitely have a tougher schedule, which is helpful and beneficial. And then we get to the Lakers, right? And we got 7 games left. And our games are so important, so crucial, so significant. We got to get the job done. We have to. We got to go at least 5-2, preferably 6-1. Now, I personally think if we win our next 2 games, which is the Timberwolves, or the Bulls and the Timberwolves, in that order, Bulls, Timberwolves, if we win those 2 games, I think we go 6-1. I do. Now, if we lose one of those games, then I think we go 5-2. The Lakers schedule, again, they have the Chicago Bulls at Chicago. They have a 5-game road trip. Now, the last game against the Clippers technically is a home game, but we are the away team, still in Staples Center. But you got the Chicago Bulls, right? This is the revenge game. This is the game that we need to bounce back. This is a game in which D'Angelo Russell hopefully comes back. That could be massive. And then we got the Minnesota Timberwolves. And again, that might be the most important game we have coming up, right? If we can beat the Timberwolves, then that might give us a full game ahead of them, which, as long as we can stay a game ahead of them, even though that they would have the tiebreaker, we would still finish ahead. Although, again, if they're the 7th, if they're the 8th seed, it doesn't matter. We'd still play them regardless in the first round of the play-in. But if we beat Chicago and we beat the Timberwolves, then you look at our last 5 games, and I think all of them are winnable. You got the Houston Rockets, which should be a gimme game. The Jazz seem to have packed it in. So if that's the case, then there's 2 more gimme games. So now you're talking there's 3 gimme games. And if you win those other 2 games, all you have to do is split one of the Clippers and the Suns games. Do the Phoenix Suns, if they have the 4 seed locked up, do they play their guys, right? Again, especially if they have a first round matchup against the Clippers or the Warriors, Do you really think that they're going to care about beating the Lakers in a regular season game? Probably not. Especially if the Lakers are essentially have like the 7th A seed ultimately locked up, right? Like if it's like, okay, well, if they lose, if we beat them, they're still going to be in the 7th or 8th seed. So they're still going to get in the playoffs and we're still going to have to face them. Do the Phoenix Suns just say, let's pack it in, right? Let's rest Kevin Durant, let's rest Chris Paul, let's rest Devin Booker and not risk those guys getting hurt. Again, Kevin Durant, already injury prone. On top of that, he's just coming back from injury, and you're going to have Devin Booker, he's had his injury troubles, and then, of course, Chris Paul, who that guy hasn't been able to stay healthy in years. So Phoenix, that's going to be a real question mark. And then the Clippers. Clippers aren't going to have Paul George. That's a very winnable game, right? I think the team we have now matches up so much better to the Clippers than before. But, Russell Westbrook, he's going to want that revenge game. That just seems like a game in which Russ goes off for like 30, 10, and 10. Like this will be like his first 30-point triple-double of the season or whatever. Like that's kind of how this feels. It's shaping up. But again, if you handle the business against the two teams of the Bulls and the Timberwolves, I think we go 4-1 in our last 5. I think we beat the Rockets. I think we beat the Jazz twice. And then I think we split one of the Clippers and Suns games. Ideally, let's say we beat the Clippers, maybe the Suns sit everybody and then we sweep the board and we go 7-0. If that happens, if we go 7-0, I think we're the 5 or 6 seed. If we go 6-1, I think we have a real shot at the 6 seed. If we go 5-2, we're probably looking at the 7th or 8th seed. Anything worse than that, we might be looking at the 9 or 10 seed. So we gotta, in my opinion, at least go 5-2. At least in our next 7 games. So that means we have to beat the Bulls and then ideally beat the Timberwolves, or if we lose to the Bulls, beat the Timberwolves, and then that gives you, the Rockets, Jazz, and Jazz, plus let's say you beat the Timberwolves, there's 4 games. Now all you got to do is split one of the Clippers and Suns games. There's your 5 games, and now you're in business, right? We got to get over at least a game or 2 over 500. If we can get to like 44 wins, then I think that'll be enough to get us the 6th seed, which that would very likely be a first round matchup against the Kings. And I think we're right there, and I think we're off to the races. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, so I pass the question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Like I said, I just kind of wanted to show you all the teams and kind of show you what their games are coming up and how they're approaching. So that way you kind of have an idea going forward. I'll still do like the daily updates, but I wanted to give us a good deep dive before we get into the last stretch of games here. So anyway, love to hear your thoughts and opinions. Let me know down in the comments below.